Good morning, all of you. I'll be starting in 1 minute time.
Good morning, ma'am.
Why is auto admit not happening every time I'm accessing? Okay, so yesterday we had started with the theories, classical theory of trade, and we started with a brief understanding about the absolute advantage theory that was given by Smith. That if there are two countries, then two nations, then the nation which has an absolute advantage in the production of a particular good has to specialize in that and then trade in that particular commodity. And then we found that if one nation has absolute advantage in both the commodities, then how should the trading take place? So we found that Ricardo has given an improvement over the Adam Smith's theory of comparative advantage. And then we tried to see that if two nations have the absolute advantage, sorry, if one nation has an absolute advantage in both the commodities, then the nation which has an absolute disadvantage, lesser disadvantage, it should specialize in that particular commodity. So we stopped there, and then we asked the question as to why a country which has absolute disadvantage or inefficient be actually accepting to import goods from an inefficient country. When I am efficient in both the commodities, then why should I go in for imports from the other country which is relatively inefficient? So the answer is given, the solution to this issue is given through money aspect. Okay, so we stopped that point. Am I audible and is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we said let us look at the comparative advantage in money terms. Now you have understood the basics of the trade. I was going a little slow yesterday because I started with trade, and I was expecting that most of you are looking at these trade aspects for the first time. Since you have now got a hold of what we are trying to understand, I'll just explain what we are trying to get through the comparative advantage with money. So we are trying to show that in terms of commodity production, the UK economy or UK nation is inefficient in production of both wheat as well as cloth. But when it comes to expressing the commodities in terms of currency of either nation, then we find that the price of cloth is lower in UK and the price of wheat is lower in US. So it is not just the efficiency that we are looking at. When we express it in terms of money, we find that we are trying to see that price of cloth is cheaper in UK and price of wheat is cheaper in US. So how does that happen? So listen to this carefully. There is some calculations which is involved, which is very simple, but you need to understand how we have got to this figure for your clear understanding. So we are saying that US is a costly economy in terms of labor cost. So we are saying that the wage of labor is $6 per hour in US. Okay. So yesterday's table, I hope you have it for reference. I'm not going back to that table. We had said that US produces 6 wheat per hour and 4 cloth per hour, yards of cloth per hour. So if, and we are taking only, remember that Ricardo did not take into consideration capital as a factor of production. So the entire Ricardian theory is based on what we call as labor value of commodity. Okay, so whatever is the input cost is only measured in terms of labor. So if we say that wages is $6 per hour, and again to repeat, it is an assumption. Okay, so it is not that capital does not exist as a factor of production, but the entire Ricardian theory is based on labor value. So we are taking the value of the commodity as the expense uh, that the factory or that the economy makes on labor. So here we are saying that US is a costly economy in terms of labor. The labor cost is very high. It pays somewhere around $6 per hour for the work. Now, if US is producing 6 wheat per hour, so 1 man hour produces 6 wheat, then price of 1 bushel of wheat will become 6 by 6. Is it not? So, in 1 hour, if 6 bushel of wheat is being produced, for 1 hour the wage is $6, then the price of wheat in US becomes $1. Is this clear? Similarly,
Yes, ma'am.
if similarly, if 4 yards of cloth is being produced in 1 hour and you're paying $6 per hour, so what becomes the price of cloth? The price of cloth becomes 6 by 4, that is $1.5. Okay, so you are paying $6 to the labor for 1 hour. He is producing 4 yards of cloth, so price of cloth per yard becomes $1.5. Okay, now we are saying that UK is has cheap labor, so UK pays only £1 per hour. This is that what we are trying to show, that UK, though it is inefficient, has productivity is low, but in terms of labor, the cost, that is the wages that you're paying for labor, is very cheap, and therefore UK gets an advantage in terms of price. So you can think of the same situation why US outsources to China. So you find that though in terms of productivity, the capital productivity in US may be very high as compared to China, but the cost of production in, that is per unit cost of production in China, is very low as compared to US, and that's why you find that China gets an advantage in terms of price. So it is not productivity here which we are taking into account, it is the final price of the product that we are taking into account. I just gave a parallel example. You can just ignore that example and focus only on what we are doing as per the Ricardian theory. So Ricardian theory says that UK's wage is £1 per hour. So if man hour produces 1 wheat in UK, the price of 1 bushel of wheat will become £1. Okay, and similarly, 1 man hour produces two cloth yards, 2 yards of cloth. So the price of cloth will become uh, zero point 0.5. Okay, so in this case what we are trying to say here is, sorry, this is not dollars, this is pounds. I'm really sorry. So this becomes 1 by 2, so it becomes zero point 0.5 pounds. Is the calculations clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we take the exchange rate, now remember, so far we had not taken any exchange rate or currency. Now suppose we take the exchange rate as £1 is equal to $2, then we can actually estimate the price of wheat in terms of dollars and price of cloth in terms of dollars. So price of wheat, you have seen in the previous slide, in terms of pound is £1. So if the exchange rate is £1 is $2, price of wheat will become $2 in UK. Similarly, if price of cloth is zero point 0.5 pounds in UK and £1 is exchanged for $2, price of cloth in dollar terms will become $1. So what we are seeing here, For comparison, we find that price of wheat is $2 in UK, price of wheat is $1 in US. Price of cloth is $1.5 in US and $1 in UK. So can you see a comparative advantage there? So US is able to produce cloth cheaply in price terms, and UK is able to produce cloth cheaply in price terms. So what US will do? US is trying to exchange the is going to specialize in wheat. US is going to specialize in wheat. It is going to export the wheat and import cloth. So when we say that why a country should import from an inefficient partner, trade partner, this is the explanation that is given. In money terms, UK wage is lower than US wages, and therefore UK gets advantage in terms of the dollars. So if we say the dollar price of wheat and cotton in the US and UK, when the exchange rate is £1 is equal to $2, we find that this is the table that we can use, which is also given in the textbook, that here we can clearly see the comparative advantage. So US has a comparative advantage in wheat and UK has a comparative advantage in cloth. So that is what we are trying to understand, that the disadvantage in terms of efficiency is covered up for the by low wages in the by low wages in United Kingdom or UK. Now it all depends on the exchange rate that we have fixed here. Okay. Now if we change the exchange rate, suppose the exchange rate is not £1 to $2. Like you see in the last lecture, I had given the range of commodities exchange, that 6 wheat will be exchanged anywhere between 4C and 12C. Remember, in yesterday's class, I had discussed that in quantity terms, if US is willing to exchange 6 wheat for anything more than 4C, and UK is willing to exchange 6W for anything less than 12C. That's what we discussed yesterday. So we found a range in which the trade can take place. Similarly, here also, given the exchange rates, to start with, we have said that the exchange rate is £1 is $2. But if the exchange rate changes, is it possible that the trade takes place? So what is the range with which the exchange, what is the range of exchange rate within which the trade is actually going to take place? The trade will take place as long as the exchange rate is between 1 by 6, that is the wage rate is between 1 by 6 and 1 by 2. Now from where did we get this 1 by 6 and 1 by 2? If you look at the productivity table here, if you look at the initial table here, you see that UK is 1/6 inefficient as compared to US in terms of wheat, and it is half inefficient, that is 1 by 2 inefficient in terms of cloth. So now here the exchange rate, when we look at the wages, okay, so when we look at the wages here, what did we see? That in US the wages is how much? Wages is 6 per hour, and in UK how much is the wage? It is 1 per hour. Okay, and what is the exchange rate? 1 is to 2. That means that we are hovering at 1 by 3. Okay, so 1 pound is $2. That means in US the wage rate is 3 times more than that of UK in terms of dollars. Is that making any sense to you? In US the wages is $6. In UK the wages is $1. Exchange rate is 1 pound to $2. That means 1 pound of wage in US will be equal to $2. That means if the wage is $6 in US, okay, it is equal to 3 pounds in US, sorry, UK. That means it is 1/3. Okay, there is a difference of 1 by 3 in dollar terms. So as long as the difference between the US wages and UK wages ranges between 1 by 6 and 1 by 2. From where did we get that 1 by 6 and 1 by 2? It is from the productivity gains that we are looking at. So as long as the wages is hovering between 1 by 6 and 1 by 2, then only the trade will take place. If it is more than that or less than 1 by 2, okay, then the trade is not going to take place. Or else if there is a change in the exchange rate itself. Now suppose the exchange rate is not 1 pound to $2, but the exchange rate is 1 pound to $1. That is 1 is to 1. In that case, the price of wheat in dollar terms in UK will become $1, and price of cloth in UK in dollar terms will become 0.5. Okay, so what is happening here? That the price of wheat is same in both the countries. UK is not facing any disadvantage here. So UK does not want any wheat at this price because it is able to produce the same amount of wheat domestically. But UK will want to export more cloth because the price of cloth is having a severe advantage here. Okay, so UK will want to export more cloth than before, whereas US will not export any wheat because it is going to get $1 for one. That is, if it is exporting $1 of wheat, it is getting 1 pound, which is not worth it because it is also producing at the same level. So UK wants to export more cloth, but US doesn't want to export wheat, and therefore there is an unbalanced trade in favor of UK. So that means the demand for the cloth is increasing, and therefore the exchange rate is going to increase because the price of cloth is very low. So when we look at it from the terms of money, we find that the exchange rate, if it is 1 is to 3, then again there will be an unbalanced trade where the price of cloth will now become 1.5, which is equal to what is available in US. So US doesn't want cloth at that price. So it will not have any demand. So exchange rate is going to fall. So this is where we try to say that international economics is very heavily reliant on microeconomics. Okay, why it is heavily reliant on microeconomics? Because we are dealing with the perfect competition, we are dealing with the demand and supply. So simply try to understand it in terms of demand and supply. Here the price of cloth is $1.5, which is equal to the price which US is producing the cloth at. So there is not going to be any demand for cloth. The exchange rate is going to fall because supply is more than demand. And in the previous case, here you found that the price of cloth is very low, so there is going to be very high demand for the cloth, and therefore the exchange rate is going to increase. So having talked about this in terms of money, what we are trying to say is that as long as the productivity difference is equal to the wage difference, the trade is going to take place. That is, if the productivity difference is 1 by 6 to 1 by 2, and the labor difference, labor cost difference is also between 1 by 6 and 1 by 2, till that point of time the trade is going to take place. And if there is any difference in the exchange rate, if the exchange rate is higher or lower than a particular level, that is, if it doesn't balance that 1 by 6 and 1 by 2, if it is on the other extreme. So if you can see here, if it is the exchange rate is 1 pound is equal to $1, it means that the productivity 1 by 6 you are saying, na? So labor cost in US is $6 and labor cost in UK is 1 pound. So you are on the one extreme, that is 1 by 6. So it becomes 1 by 6. So you're on that extreme. So again, the trade is going to be unbalanced. Whereas if the exchange rate is 1 pound to $3, then what you are getting is $6 dollars is the labor wage in US, and $1 is sorry, 1 pound is in UK. So what you are getting here is 6 divided by 3, that is 2. So you are getting 1 by 2 as the difference here. So a productivity difference here. So again, the trade is not going to take place. So trade is going to take place only if your productivity difference, that is 1 by 2 and 1 by 6. Your exchange rate also is between 1 by 2 and 1 by 6. At 1 by 2 also trade is going to be unbalanced, and at 1 by 6 also trade is going to be unbalanced. So when we saw that 1 pound is equal to $2, then only the trade is going to take place, because here you find that there is a clear productivity, that is price gain for US as well as for UK. So if we are on the other two extremes, 1 by 6 and 1 by 2, the demand and supply will ensure that the trade is going to get balanced. Okay, so that is what we are trying to look at the Ricardian theory in terms of money. So to summarize it, we said that if the nation has disadvantage in terms of in both the commodities that it is trading, that it is producing, then it has to export that commodity in which it has the least disadvantage, and it has to import the other commodity. So that is what is all about the Ricardian theory. The next theory that we are going to do is what we call as comparative advantage and opportunity cost. This is the third theory that we are going to do. So today I'll be doing constant opportunity cost, and in the next lecture I'll be doing increasing opportunity cost. So today we are going to do the constant opportunity cost. We are restating the comparative advantage in terms of opportunity cost. Now, this is an extension in terms of opportunity cost, extension of the comparative advantage theory in terms of opportunity cost. So we have some assumptions. The assumptions are, we are dealing with two nations, nation 1 and nation 2. We are dealing with two commodities, and we are dealing with one factor, that is labor. We are dealing with free trade. So an important aspect here is that there is perfect mobility of labor within each nation, but there is immobility between the two nations. That is immobility of labor between two nations. So labor is fully mobile within each nation, which means that the wages will be same across all the places in the within the country. Then we are talking about constant cost of production, because here we are dealing with opportunity cost. We are dealing with the first situation, which is called the constant cost of production. That means whether you produce 10 units, 100 units or 1000 units, the marginal cost is going to be the same. Every additional unit that you want to produce can be produced at the same cost. That's what it means, constant cost of production. No transportation cost has been a uniform feature in the classical theory, so there is no transportation cost. No technical change indicates that you cannot increase the productivity by changing the proportion of your factors. Okay, so here what we are saying is the technology used is fixed, so we are not considering any technological change. Technical change aspect we are introducing in module 2 after we introduce the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, that comes a little later. In the classical theory, all the assumptions of perfect competition only holds. So in perfect competition, one of the important assumption is there is no technical change. So we are assuming labor theory of value, which I have already explained you in my previous illustration that we talked about, that labor is the only input and the wages are the only cost that is incurred in producing the commodity. So we are focusing on labor theory of value. Perfect competition, all these factors that we talk about, perfect mobility, no transportation cost, no technical change, all are features of perfect competition. And the last one is balanced trade. Balanced trade means imports is equal to the value of import is equal to the value of export. Okay, so that's what we have seen earlier also. So if I'm exporting 6 wheat, I am trying to get 6 cloth. So import is equal to export, and here we are measuring it in terms of man hours. So I said if 1 man hour is producing 6 wheat, I require 6 cloth because it is equal to 1 man hour. Okay, so if I'm exporting 1 man hour, I want import worth 1 man hour. So that's where we are trying to balance the trade. So here the original idea of comparative advantage was based on labor theory of value. Now the labor theory of value holds that costs and prices are solely determined by the labor content of any item. Okay, so in the previous example, we took only wages in US to be equal to $6 per hour, and wages in UK to be equal to £1 per hour. So we said that the cost and price are solely determined by the labor content of an item. But when we look at the opportunity cost theory, it does not specify, though the implied understanding is there is only one input, that is labor, and wages are the determinant of the cost, but it does not purely focus on saying that that is the only source of productive difference, that is the wages are the only source of productive difference. So when we say that labor is not the only source of production, it can be other factors also. We also say that labor can be used in different proportions for producing different commodities, and labor is also heterogeneous. Okay, so when we say that these assumptions are relaxed, we can come to the next theory that we have started with, that is called the comparative cost theory based on labor theory of value using opportunity cost. This opportunity cost theory was given by an economist called Haberler. Now, Haberger is different economist. Haberler is a different economist. Okay, so the Haberger's triangle that we did, dead weight loss, that is a different concept altogether. He is a different economist. This economist is Haberler. In 1936, he gave this opportunity cost theory. And when we look at the opportunity cost theory, what is the definition of opportunity cost? It is cost of an item in terms of the resources that has to be foregone to produce one more unit of the first item. Now we all understand, we have studied opportunity cost several times in our entire course, right from the 11th standard if we are studying economics. So we are using opportunity cost to determine comparative advantage. Okay, so as I said, this is a extension of the comparative advantage theory. I have told you yesterday that comparative advantage theory is almost unchallenged till date. There have been several explanations to comparative advantage, several modifications to comparative advantage, but overall most of the world economists agree to the fact that trade takes place because of comparative advantage. Now, from where that comparative advantage comes, different explanations have been given over the last 1 century. But the theory as such, the base of the theory as such, that trade happens because of comparative advantage, has not been challenged. So here Haberler gives this explanation that opportunity cost is what determines comparative advantage. OC is opportunity cost and CA is the comparative advantage. So opportunity cost, we have already defined. It is the amount that must be given up to release sufficient resources. Here he is not specifying what is the resource, whether it is capital resource, whether it is labor resource, whether it is physical resource, whether it is natural resource, whether it is any kind of human resources. What is the resource that is to be released is not mentioned, but it is said that when I want to produce one extra unit of any item, I have to reduce the amount of another item, and whatever I'm releasing, the resource that I'm releasing is going to determine the opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost is illustrated using the production possibility frontier, or what we call as the transformation curve. Now, production possibility curve frontier and or transformation curve, we have done several times in our economics. So all of you have an idea as to what do we mean by transformation curve or or production possibility frontier. So what is a production possibility frontier? It shows alternative combinations of two commodities that a nation can produce by fully utilizing all its resources with the best technology that is available to it. Do I have to explain this? All of us understand production possibility frontier, is it not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So once we understand the production possibility frontier, let us see an hypothetical case here that in US and UK. Okay, so what we see here is the two tables in US and UK. The maximum amount of wheat with the given resources that US can produce is 180. Okay, so it doesn't produce any cloth. Suppose it produces all wheat with its given resources. The maximum amount or the quantity that it can produce is 180 bushels of wheat or 180 units. Let's not use any specific unit term. Let us say it is 180 units. It is producing zero cloth and 180 units. Suppose it wants to increase the production of cloth from 0 to 20. It wants to add one extra 20 units of cloth. Then it has to reduce the production of wheat so as to release sufficient resources to produce that additional unit of cloth. So how many units of wheat production it is reducing? It is reducing 30 units of production of wheat in order to produce additional 20 units of cloth. Remember, our assumption is constant cost, opportunity cost. Okay, so we are in next lecture, I'll be doing increasing opportunity cost theory, but here we are doing constant opportunity cost theory. So what you see here in this table, for every additional 20 units of cloth that is going to be produced, US has to release 30 units of wheat. Is this clear? For every additional 20 units of cloth that US has to produce, it has to release 30 units of wheat. So if it has to go from 20 to 40, 150 to 120, it has to reduce 30 units here. 40 to 60, again 30 units it has to release here. Again 60 to 80, 30 units. Similarly, the maximum amount of cloth that US can produce is 120 with zero wheat. So on one extreme, if it doesn't produce any cloth, the maximum it can produce is 180 units of wheat. And if it doesn't produce any wheat, the maximum it can produce is 120 cloth. This is for United States. This is the production possibility frontier for United States. Coming to United Kingdom, the opportunity cost is different here. For every 20 additional units of cloth that is going to get produced in UK, how much is the sacrifice that has to be made in terms of wheat?
10.
So 10 units of cloth has to, 10 units of wheat has to be sacrificed in order to produce every 20 units of cloth in United Kingdom. So UK can produce a maximum of 60 wheat with zero cloth or 120 cloth with zero wheat. So we get the first point on the production possibility frontier, that is 180 and 0. So if we measure wheat on OX axis and cloth on OY axis, the first point that we are getting here is 180 wheat and 0 cloth. And the other point on OY axis that we are getting is 0 wheat and 120 cloth. So the red line that we are seeing here is the production possibility frontier for United States. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
So each point on this curve gives us a combination of wheat and cloth that US can produce. So if it is producing 150 wheat, it can produce 20 cloth. So at this point it is 150 and 20. Similarly, at this point it is 40 and 120. It is 90 and 60 at this point, 80 and 60 at this point, and 130 at this point, and 120 and 0 at this point. So all points on the production possibility frontier gives various combinations of wheat. Now can you draw the same for UK? Please draw it in 2 minutes time. Can you draw a production possibility frontier for UK using this table? Wheat will be on OX axis and cloth will be on OY axis. Please draw a production possibility frontier for UK. Done? Let me know once you are done. Could everyone draw this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for United States, the endpoints are 120 and 180. For UK, the endpoint is 120 and 60. So what we see here is the slope is a straight line because the opportunity cost is constant. Okay, the slope is a straight line here. The slope will change in the next topic that we are going to do, but here the slope is constant because the opportunity cost is constant. So one more aspect about the production possibility frontier which we know, which we need to understand here is that the productive efficiency is on the line, which we always study about the production possibility frontier. Just repeating it once again for brushing up, that all points on the production possibility frontier give us the productive maximum, that is the most efficient utilization of the resources is taking place on the points of production possibility frontier. If we are below the production possibility frontier, we have underutilized resources, and if we are above the production possibility frontier, it is not achievable. So these are some of the characteristics of the production possibility frontier which we have done several times. On the line, efficient; below the line, underutilization; and above the line, unachievable. Okay. So without trade, let us assume that US is at point A on the line and UK is at A prime on the line. It means US is able to produce 60 units of cloth and 90 units of wheat, and UK is able to produce 40 units of cloth and 40 units of wheat. This is again a hypothetical situation that we are saying that a country cannot go beyond its production possibility frontier without trade. So we are going to show the gains from trade when the country is going beyond its production possibility frontier. That's the reason why I gave you this example here, that as long as there is no trade that is taking place, this point is unattainable with the existing resources and technology for a nation. So what we are trying to say is that domestically, without trade, the country can reach a maximum of only this much of production, that is on the line production. If it has to go beyond this line with its existing technology and resources, it is not possible without trade. But once it trades with the other country, it can go beyond this particular line. That is how we are trying to illustrate the gains from trade. But before getting there, let us go a little more deeply into what do we mean by constant cost, why constant cost actually occurs within as in the nation, and how constant cost can be considered as a basis for trade. So constant opportunity cost arises when the resources or factors of production are perfect substitutes of each other. Okay, so when we are saying that, again remember this is a hypothetical situation. Normally the costs are not constant, but here we are saying that the factors of production that are used in the production process are perfect substitutes of each other. That's the reason when we are increasing the production of one commodity and expecting the resources to be released from the other commodity, we are saying that the cost remains constant. That means there is no change in the cost. Okay, so resources of or the factors of production are perfect substitutes of each other. Then the second thing that we are looking at here is the factors are being used in fixed proportions. As long as the factors are being used in fixed proportions, the cost will remain constant. The third thing that we are saying is that all units of the same factors are homogeneous or of the same quality. That's the reason we are saying that they're perfect substitutes of each other. So when I'm increasing, suppose I'm increasing the production of cloth by reducing the production of wheat, the resources that are getting released from the production of wheat is of the same quality as I require for producing one additional unit of cloth. That is the reason why the cost is remaining constant. The same amount of one commodity must be given up to produce additional unit of the second commodity. So when we are saying that the cost remains constant throughout the production possibility frontier, opportunity cost is same for the one nation, but it will differ across nations. So that's what we saw here. So opportunity cost is same within the nation, but it is different for the two nations. That is UK and US have different opportunity cost. So now let us try to see how we can use this opportunity cost in determining the comparative advantage. Because our theory is opportunity comparative advantage theory using opportunity cost. So far, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So opportunity cost, how it can be used to determine comparative advantage. We know that opportunity cost of W is equal to the amount of C that the nation must give up in order to release enough resources to produce an additional unit of wheat. Okay, so if I have to produce that's the slope of the production possibility frontier is what is determining the opportunity cost. So if the economy has to produce an additional unit of cloth, how much is the amount of wheat that it is going to sacrifice is what is our production possibility frontier giving. Now we are saying that prices equals cost. Okay, price equals cost. When will the price equal cost? Our assumption is perfect competition. So we are saying that price is equal to cost. So if the slope of the production possibility frontier is 120 by 180, then the opportunity cost is 2 by 3, whereas the opportunity cost in UK becomes 120 by 60, which is 2. So what is this? How did we get 120 by 180? The slope of the production possibility frontier, or what we call as the marginal rate of transformation. So for every additional unit of cloth, every 2 additional units of cloth that I want to produce, I am sacrificing 3 units of wheat. That's what it means. The opportunity cost means that for every additional 2 units of cloth that I am producing in US, I am sacrificing 3 units of wheat. So this is the opportunity cost which remains constant throughout the production possibility frontier. Similarly, the slope of UK's transformation curve is 120 by 60, which is equal to 2, which is the opportunity cost, which means that for producing every additional 2 units of cloth, I am sacrificing 1 unit of wheat. So in a perfect competition, prices equals cost, because we are assuming that there is no profit that the producer is taking. In a perfectly competitive market, the price is always equal to cost. So if we say that price equals to cost, then the price of wheat divided by price of cloth, what we call as the relative price of wheat in terms of cloth, has to be equal to the opportunity cost. Okay, so if we say that prices equals cost, then the relative price of wheat to cloth should be equal to opportunity cost. So the relative price of wheat in US is 2 by 3 and relative price of wheat in UK is 2. Inversely, if we inverse it, we see that the price of cloth, relative price of cloth is 1.5 in US and relative price of cloth in UK is 0.5. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So what we see is in US, wheat is relatively cheaper. Can't you see that? Can you see that? So you can see that in US, the wheat is relatively cheaper. In UK, it is 2 and in US, relative price of wheat is 2 by 3. And similarly, In UK, cloth is relatively cheaper. It is 0.5 and here it is 1.5. So when we want to express comparative advantage, what do we say? That US in terms of opportunity cost has a comparative advantage in the production of wheat and UK has a comparative advantage in the production of cloth. Now we have expressed it in terms of relative prices. Relative prices has come from opportunity cost. And we are assuming that the opportunity cost is constant. So difference in the relative commodity prices between the two nations is the reflection of their comparative advantage and it's the basis for mutually beneficial trade. So you have seen how we have developed the theory. In the absolute advantage theory, the basis of trade was absolute advantage in the production of commodity. In the comparative advantage theory, we said that it is the comparative advantage in the production of the commodities. In terms of money, when we tried to express it, we said that it's the labor cost that is making the difference, and two countries, when they have, even if it is producing inefficiently, the labor cost is making it, balancing it for the inefficiency. That was comparative advantage theory of Ricardo. Now Haberler has given in 1936 the same comparative advantage theory in terms of opportunity cost. So he says that the basis of the mutually beneficial trade is not the labor cost that we are looking at. It is basically the opportunity cost. So difference in the relative commodity prices between the two nations is the reflection of the comparative advantage, and that is how the trade is going to become mutually beneficial. So the basis of trade is opportunity cost in this third theory. Okay, in fact the fourth theory, because we also have done mercantilism. So the basis of trade is opportunity cost differences, which is going to make the difference in the relative prices. So fine, trade takes place, but there has to be gains from the trade also. So as I already told that first we are going to find out the basis of trade, which we found out, relative prices difference, and then we have to find out the gains from the trade. In the Ricardian comparative advantage theory, we did it using the table, the gains that the economy is getting from trade. But here we are using the graphical approach. So in autarky, this term is now, you are familiar with this term. It means without trade, production is equal to consumption. So the economy will be on the production possibility frontier, which will also be its consumption frontier. We have already drawn this diagram, so no need to draw it again. And we also know that we are on this point. So if you remember, I had shown you that point in the previous diagram itself, that suppose this is again an assumption that based on the taste and preferences of every nation, suppose UK and US are on the trade point here. Sorry, in absence of trade, it has to consume what it produces. Suppose US produces 90 wheat and 60 cloth, it will be on this point, and UK produces 40 wheat and 40 cloth. So what is the combined production of wheat in the world before trade? before trade. Before trade, the combined production of wheat in the world is 90 wheat, 90 wheat and 40 wheat in UK. Is it not? So the combined production of wheat in the world is 90 wheat in US plus 40 wheat in UK. And what is the combined production of cloth without trade? It is 60 in US and 40 in UK. So in the absence of trade, the total cloth production of the world is 100 of cloth and 130 of wheat. Now we are saying that suppose US specializes in wheat and UK specializes in cloth because it has comparative advantage. US has comparative advantage in the production of wheat and US has comparative advantage in the production of cloth. So what US does, please understand this very clearly. US will be here producing only wheat and zero cloth. Okay, so US specializes in wheat and is here producing only wheat, all wheat and no cloth. Okay, so 180 will become the production of wheat in US. It does not produce any cloth. Similarly, UK is going to specialize in the production of cloth because the relative price of cloth in opportunity cost of producing cloth is lower in UK. UK is going to produce all cloth and no wheat.
Ma'am, we can't see the screen.
1 second. Why suddenly it has gone? 1 second. I think am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what has happened suddenly. I'll rejoin the meeting once again. There is a little network problem. I'll just rejoin. Since when you are not able to see the screen?
A minute ago.
Okay, okay. Suddenly the department's network is lost, I think. Can you see the screen now?
Visible.
Okay. Okay, so here what I'm saying is that US produces all wheat, and then UK produces all cloth. So the maximum production US can do is 180, and the maximum production that UK is doing is 120. Okay, so it is called specialization. Then we are saying that US exchanges 70 wheat to 70 cloth with UK. Okay, so US is exchanging 70 wheat to 70 cloth with UK. Okay, so uh, the screen, yeah. So what we are saying is the maximum amount is produced here, and what is the exchange that is taking place? 70 wheat to 70 cloth. Okay, 70 wheat to 70 cloth. So what is the amount of wheat US is producing? Total 180. Out of which it is exporting 70 to United Kingdom. So how much it is left with? 110. So 180 minus 70 will be equal to 110. Is that clear? Am I audible and the screen
Yes,
visible?
ma'am.
Okay. So what is the exchange that is taking place? 70 wheat to 70 cloth. So US produces 180 minus 70. Now it can consume 110 wheat and 70 cloth. So what you can see here, it is on point E. Before trade, US was on point A on its production possibility frontier. E was unreachable for US because it is outside its production possibility frontier. But if it specializes in the production of wheat, that is 180 it produces, exchanges it for 70 wheat, 70 cloth, then it can consume 110 wheat and 70 cloth and be on point E. It can reach point E, which is above its production possibility frontier, and consume 70 cloth and 110 wheat. Is that clear? So this is called gains from trade, because as long as it is not trading, it can reach maximum point A, but after trading, it can reach point E, which is beyond its production possibility frontier. Similarly, for UK, the maximum it was able to reach without trade was 40-40 at point A prime. But now what it is doing, it is producing 120 cloth. Out of 120 cloth, what it is doing? It is exporting 70 cloth to US and in turn getting 70 wheat. So 120 minus 70 is 50. So it is retaining 50 units of cloth and getting 70 units of wheat. So it will also be on point E prime, which is outside its production possibility frontier. Is the calculations clear and why we have drawn this diagram? Is that clear to everyone? So what we are saying here is there are gains from trade. By trading, without trading, you were only on point A and A prime. But after trading, you are exchanging 70 wheat to 70 cloth. So now your final consumption is 110 wheat and 70 cloth in US and 50 cloth and 70 wheat in UK. So US now consumes 110 wheat and 70 cloth. US consumes 70 wheat and 50 cloth. So what is the gains of trade in consumption? How did we calculate this gains of trade in consumption? Can anyone tell me? Before trade, US was consuming 90 wheat. After trade, US is consuming 110 wheat. So consumers in US are able to consume 20 additional units of wheat. So is this a gain in consumption? So 20 wheat is the gain in consumption in US. Similarly, before trade, US was consuming 60 cloth. After trade, it is consuming 70 cloth. So 10 is the additional consumption of cloth in US. Similarly, before trade in UK, consumption of wheat was 40. After trade, it is 70. So the additional gain in consumption is 30 in UK of wheat. Similarly, additional gain in consumption of cloth before trade was 40. After trade, consumers in UK are consuming 50. So additional gain is 10. So in US, 20 wheat and 10 C is the gain of consumption and 30 wheat and 10 C is the gain of consumption in UK. How much is the gain in production? Gain in production, we were producing total of 90 plus 40 in the world wheat production. But now the world production has increased to 180. So 90 plus 40 was the world production before trade. 180 is the world production after trade. Similarly, 60 and 40 was the world production of cloth before trade, 100. But after trade, after specialization, the world production has increased to 120. So both in the production and consumption, there has been gains, and this is what we call as the trade, that is benefit that the economy is getting because of trade. So before trade, without trade, both the production and consumption were at a lower level. After trade, both the production and consumption are at a higher level, which we call as gains from trade. So we have demonstrated using the opportunity cost theory how what is the basis of trade. Basis of trade is opportunity cost, relative price differences, and what is the gains in consumption and what is the gains in production. Remember, so far we had not considered the demand aspect. Okay, so the last part of the opportunity cost, constant opportunity cost, is bringing the demand curve also in the picture. So the equilibrium can be understood using demand and supply. Equilibrium, to understand equilibrium price, we are bringing in demand and supply. Now remember, we are getting into the constant cost. We are into the constant cost theory. So how did we get this supply curve? This supply curve is not like any other supply curve because we are drawing it in the constant cost. Okay, and what we are measuring here, we are measuring relative prices on OY axis and production of wheat in the OX axis. So the SW curve that you can see, a haphazard curve that stepwise curve that you can see here is the supply curve, which gives us the combined supply of wheat in the world, US plus UK. Okay, so what is the maximum supply that can happen at different relative prices is what we are trying to see. So if the relative price between wheat and cloth is 2/3, which is the relative price in US, maximum wheat that can be produced by US is 180. So just see this curve here. We have got the relative price as 2/3 for which is the slope of this line, and the maximum US can produce here is 180. Okay, so and the slope of this curve is 2. So if the relative price is 2/3, maximum that can be produced is 180. If the relative price is 2, maximum that can be produced is 60. So that is what we have shown in this curve, which is the supply curve. When the relative price is 2/3, the maximum that can be produced, which US only can produce, UK cannot produce at this relative price. So the maximum production is 180. When the relative price increases to 2, the production that takes place in UK, how much is the production that can take place maximum in the UK? 60 of wheat at relative price 2. So 180 plus 60 is 240. So the prices between 2/3 and 2, there is no production. That's why you see this supply curve to be vertical. So the maximum production that can take place is at relative price 2/3. Then the supply curve becomes vertical. And when the price becomes 2, we can add another 60 units which can be produced by UK. So this is the production that can take place. And again, the supply curve becomes vertical. So that's the reason why you have this supply curve like this. So the production at 2/3 price is 180 and at price 2 becomes 240. This is the only available supply in the world. Given the demand curve based on the taste and preferences, suppose we say that it intersects at this relative price, which is 1:1, then the equilibrium is taking place at point E and the world production is taking place at the demand and supply are intersecting at point E, and US is specializing in wheat and the maximum world production is reaching 180. Similarly, we have the supply curve for cloth. The previous curve was for wheat. This is for cloth. So on the OX axis, you can measure cloth production. And what you see here, at 1/2 price, relative price of cloth by wheat. Okay, the previous diagram was wheat by cloth, price of wheat by cloth. This is relative price of cloth by wheat. So the relative price ranges is 1 by 2 and 2. So at 1 by 2 price, which is the slope of the production possibility frontier of UK, maximum of 120 units of cloth is being produced. Nothing gets produced between this range. Then when the price reaches 3 by 2, another 120 units of production takes place from US. That becomes 240 world production at 240. Okay, when the price is 3 by 2, and again it becomes vertical. So this is the supply curve of cloth, and again we are saying that the demand curve intersects here, and maximum of 120 units of cloth is getting produced at the relative price, which is equal to 1. So there is a complete specialization in both the cases. There is a complete specialization here, which is relative price equals to 1, where the wheat is getting produced 180, and in the next curve that we are seeing here, the equilibrium is established. Equilibrium is established at the relative price equals 1. So here what we are trying to say is that complete specialization in production is taking place in both the countries, and equilibrium relative commodity price of each commodity is between the pre-trade relative price, pre-trade commodity relative price. So finally, when we want to achieve the equilibrium, we are saying that complete specialization is going to take place. And any price which is above or below this, okay, is going to pass on the advantage to only one country, and therefore the price is going to increase or decrease based on demand and supply. It is similar to what we had done in the comparative advantage, that if the price is near 4C, then all the advantage goes to US, and if the price is near 12C, all the advantage goes to UK. Similarly, here also we are saying that if the price moves away from 1, relative price 1, then it is the demand and supply that is going to play an important role there, and the price comes back to 1. The demand curve can intersect at different points, but here we are saying that the demand curve is intersecting at point E, where the relative price is equal to 1. Otherwise, the trade is not going to take place. So this was the opportunity cost theory under constant cost conditions. I hope you have understood this theory. Basically, what is the summary of the entire lecture? I started with mercantilism. Then I did the absolute advantage, where it was shown that the basis of trade is absolute advantage and there are gains from trade. UK gains more than US, but still the trade happens. If both countries are facing if both countries there is no absolute advantage, then we followed comparative advantage. And there we said that country with least disadvantage is the basis of trade. And there again we showed that there is gains from trade. In 1936, when Haberler gave this theory, he considered that the opportunity cost is the basis of trade. And since we are dealing with perfect competition, cost is equal to price, and changes in the relative price, differences in the relative price determines the trade. If two countries have different relative price, the country with lower relative price gains in specialization, and specialization after it takes place, there is going to be the trade, that is advantage benefits that are going to take place from the trade is both from production and consumption. Lastly, we showed that with trade, the relative prices get determined at a level where the demand curve intersects the supply curve. If the demand curve intersects anywhere higher or lower in the supply curve, the forces of prices, the demand is greater than supply, then the prices will be pushed upwards. If demand is less than the supply, the prices is going to be pushed downwards. And finally, the equilibrium is going to get established at point where the relative prices is same for both the countries, for both the commodities. As long as the relative price keeps varying, the trade does not is advantageous to one country and disadvantageous to the other country. So demand and supply forces are going to take shape and establish at a point where the relative prices are same for both the countries. In the next lecture, we'll be discussing the opportunity cost theory in terms of increasing opportunity cost, because constant opportunity cost is a hypothetical condition. Increasing opportunity cost is what normally is seen, and then we are going to see how the gains of trade gets distributed between the two countries. So I hope I am clear. We will meet in the next lecture. So I'm closing this meet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.